And the Taiwanese government is positioning its fledgling drone industry as, quote, zero red or non-Chinese made. President Lai Ching-te has outlined three key defense policy goals: industrial development, defense self-sufficiency, and building a democratic supply chain. Since 2022, the government has built a new drone research center, subsidized local companies to develop AI imaging chips and flight controllers, and awarded $210 million in drone procurement contracts for Taiwan's armed forces. It aims to produce 15,000 homemade drones a month by 2028. In terms of aerial drones, Taiwan wants to focus on 4 different kinds, both to buy and to manufacture: a short-range direct attack model, a loitering munition model, a vertical takeoff and horizontal airlift capable model, and a cost-effective type with capabilities comparable to guided missiles. Sean, let me come to you first. So, Jyh-Shyang in the studio was talking about the mass, the numbers that are required. Do you think that Taiwan's goal of 15,000 by 2028, is that enough?
Just to put it in context, the Ukrainian capacity currently in 2024, they built 2.2 million drones. The projected capacity for 2025 is 4 million drones, and they're hoping to push up to 5 million drones built. So at 15,000 drones per month, it's about 180,000 drones per year. So if you just look at the comparison between the two with similarly sized adversaries, I think there's a good argument to be made that a higher number will probably be required in the conflict. And again, these don't need to be the very high cost drones that we were talking about previously, but these low cost commodity drones that can be rapidly iterated on with different payloads and software packages, I think is a really great opportunity. And going back to the point of partnership, with the United States, with Europe, with Ukraine, I think is a lot of great capacity building there of connecting the supply chain with the software and autonomy and navigation packages with the payloads and sensors that come from different countries. And that's actually how we got involved in Genie Space, reached out and saw some of the work that we were doing in Ukraine and asked if we could bring some of those capabilities for detecting jammers and spoofers and locating and mapping out that infrastructure for removal. Was something that could work well with the drone manufacturing that they were doing. And I think you duplicate that en masse across all of the great innovation that's doing across the globe by democratic countries. It really creates for a really resilient and powerful network to counter the threats that are across the globe today.
Jyh-Shyang, let's pick up on jamming, which Sean has mentioned a number of times there. So the issue here is that, is it that the communications on some drones are not jam resistant, and this has to be fixed?
The Ukrainians produce millions of drones each year, and they also launch lots of many thousands of drone attacks every month. And how many successful cases do they have? So that means most of the drones might be jammed or maybe crashed with untrained operators or some weather, climate issues or jamming and so on. So that means only a very small part of the entire million of drones could successfully hit the target. I think drones are, in particular, the commercial drones are vulnerable against the jamming. So, of course, we can enhance its capability to counter electronic warfare. But at the same time, huge numbers of drones and better use of tactics, for instance, the Ukrainians are also using some high-end weaponry like HIMARS or some precision weapons to attack the Russian jammers.
So basically, because there will be a high failure rate because of these electronic warfare, that's why we need to produce many more drones. Sean, bringing you back in again, let's go to these 4 different kinds of drones that we listed. How do each of these play their role in Hellscape?
Different drones for different missions. Obviously, you have your kinetic drones, which might be the kamikaze or first-person visualized drones going after a target. And those particularly do a lot of work to avoid the jamming we were talking about previously. The Ukrainians kind of iterate every 3 to 6 months, sometimes even faster, coming up with counters to the Russians different ways that they try to block the navigation of these drones. Some of the most recent actually have fiber optic cables that are like the size of a fishing line that come off the back of the drones and maintain communication and navigation for them. So there's not a way to jam it since it's literally a physical cord connecting to it. Loitering ammunition drones, quite similar in that you can put those in place and then look for activity and removing targets along those. But then we also have drones that are out doing surveillance and navigation and giving situational awareness to folks on the ground that's equally critical. Because as we mentioned before, if you know where the jammers are and you can remove the jammers, then that frees up the airspace for a lot more conventional type of approaches. And same thing with understanding troop positions and maneuvering is so critical to finding advantage in these conflicts, especially as they spread out over time. And then you also have the vertical lift ones that you're talking about. They're very important for supply, resupply, medevac, things along those lines. They're really critical from a logistics standpoint. So drones really have insinuated themselves across the landscape and the battlefield into the supply chains on the front lines and interconnected too. So it really has revolutionized how warfare occurred. And even more so in the last couple of years, sparking up the innovations that have happened in places like Ukraine.
And so, Sean, I just want to get your perspective as an American from the outside of Taiwan's desire to seek this position as a non or zero red drone kingdom or supply chain. What do you make of that? Is there a large market for this?
Yeah, I think it's a critical capacity for the globe. I mean, Taiwan is such a hub for high-tech semiconductors, capacities that are critical for us making high-tech manufacturing at low cost and at scale. And that's something that Taiwan does better than any country in the world. And so having that as a critical alternative to other supply chains that are well aligned, I think is something that will be vastly important. And going back to the concept of partnership, being able to interconnect the strengths of democracies across the globe at what they do best. Ukraine has built wonderful capacities. The European Union has amazing technologies and history and understanding and advancements, especially in satellites. The U.S. has its own innovation bed. And then I think, Taiwan's capacity to do these things at scale and at low cost are going to be so critical to the future of drone warfare that I think it's critical not only for Taiwan's domestic defense, but I also think for the global alliance and coalition that we build to protect democracies across the globe.
Jyh-Shyang, we talked about mass production as being one of the challenges that Taiwan faces. Are there any other challenges at the moment that we must overcome?
We already created a drone cluster in Jyh County, and I think our government want to replicate the successful experience of our science park, but it's still in very beginning phase. Most of them are startups or small companies, so that means they need their capacity is quite limited, and they need more investment. They need more order from outside, maybe from United States, maybe from neighboring countries or NATO countries. That means we are what the government need to do is actually to integrate the cluster and our, phase one or the beginning phase drone industry into the global market. So that is also what we are doing now to try to connect our drone companies with the US companies.
So, Sean, Taiwan has established a drone alliance specifically to go overseas to seek those orders that we know are so important for building up industrial capacity. Tell us what you know about this particular alliance. It's signed MOUs with the Latvian and Estonian defense industries.
Yeah, I think it's another wonderful opportunity to continue to build those partnership and relationships between different allies across the globe that are facing similar conflicts. The Baltic countries face considerable jamming from the Russians across their airspace. It impacts commercial aviation as well as drones. And so they're learning on the front lines of what those attacks look like and how to counter them. And so I think matching that on the ground experience and real world threat that they face is another opportunity to learn, to partner, and to bring these capacities online. And I think we'll find that replicated across the globe. I know that's one of the big things the Ukrainians have been doing, is reaching out to folks that have similar threats and conflict profiles and figuring out how to support them. And that's one thing we've tried to do, is introduce the companies that we find in Ukraine that are building successful technologies that are effectively working within these new drone landscapes and connecting them to opportunities in places like Taiwan and other places in the world. And I think as we provide more of that cross-pollination, like Taiwan is doing with Latvia and Estonia, it just continues to build that coalition, provides knowledge spillover and learning that just makes a more resilient global set of democratic ally partners.